What is up, Cinephiles? It's been a while, and yes, I'm alive. For those of you who are wondering where I've been for the past month, I needed to take a break for my mental anxiety because there's so much going on with my life. But now I am back, and I know I owe you guys content, specifically a month worth of content. So I'm just gonna do this by putting out a capsule review of all the movies that I've seen for the month of May. And this is just gonna be short because I know you've already got your review from somewhere else. And just to give you guys a recap of my movie log. So I have 7 films here. First off, we have The Lost City, directed by Adam and Raimi. This is an action-adventure comedy film, and it stars Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum. And I'm just gonna go right off the bat and say that this movie has really nothing new to offer. It's just a massive throwback to adventure romance films like Romancing the Stone. It's a reminder of Hollywood's offering in the past. There's treasure hunting, there's adventure, there's a romance angle into it, there's a bunch of comedy, and it's not necessarily as inspired, but maybe I'm in the minority here because there are a lot of people who get a kick out of this. For me, it's just worthy on a streaming level, but since I've seen this on the theater, I felt a little bit robbed. But if you watch this going in looking for that chemistry, the banter between Channing Tatum and Sandra Bullock, who are all committed in making this movie funnier than it should have been, because sometimes while watching this, I can feel that the script is really trying hard, and it's one of those films that is just massively relies on the charisma of the cast rather than thinking of something that's just new. And it's not something that I'm really expecting because it's just your run-of-the-mill action flick. There are some laughs in this film, but I think most of them are already seen in the trailers. So I don't know, this movie didn't really work for me, but it's nice to see the lead actors here being in their comfort zones, working overtime to make this movie funnier. And yeah, Brad Pitt is also here. He steals the show. But for me, I'm gonna give this one a 2.5 out of 5. It's harmless, it's entertaining at the moment, but ultimately forgettable. So the next movie we have is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. This is directed by Sam Raimi, director of the horror films like Evil Dead and also the Spider-Man 2 film, which is my favorite comic book movie of all time. Now, those 2 movies are what best encapsulates the experience watching this movie, because he did it, merging superhero with horror elements. I wouldn't say that this is a horror film. It's still a superhero film in nature, but it has horror elements here that's quite shocking that they include it for a PG-13 film, because watching this movie, I'm pretty sure a couple of kids will be traumatized in here. We're talking about Multiverse. It's all about madness, and the visual effects are crisp and top-notch. Like on a visual spectacle, it delivers. It also helps that I got to see this on IMAX. And for me, the movie really shines the best when Sam Raimi's really embracing his horror style. It's like he's doing a reference to all of his previous movies, which might be a good thing if you are a fan of Sam Raimi. My only con in this movie, which is probably a huge one, is it didn't felt like it's Doctor Strange's story. It feels like he's only playing second fiddle here to the bigger arc here, which is the story of Wanda. And that being said, you need to watch WandaVision and of course Doctor Strange Part 1, because you won't be able to connect the character growth here. Like if the last movie you've seen is Infinity War or Endgame for Wanda, this won't make the connection of why she's acting this way. So you really need to watch WandaVision. There's also a new character here played by Xochitl, and I think she's a wonderful addition, though sometimes it feels like the film is a bit guilty on just using her as a plot device. But all in all, I thoroughly enjoyed watching this one. This movie has a great rewatch value, and even if it might not reach the emotional heights of, say, Spider-Man No Way Home, I think this one still can be commended for all the brave choices that Marvel is doing, because we have seen so many of these movies, superhero movies, and it's time to change the formula sometimes, and this is one of those films that they took a risk and it paid off. So I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5 stars. Now let's move on to another movie that tackles about multiverse. It's Everything Everywhere All at Once, directed by Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert. This movie is just one of a kind. This is a maximalist storytelling. The material for this movie, the screenplay, I can imagine this being a series worth of content. We're talking about multiverses here, and each of the multiverse here feels fleshed because you really felt that the writers here have thought of a story all the way from top to bottom, from the different versions of life here of the character played by Michelle Yeoh, which is Evelyn. And yeah, I just fell in love with this movie because, not to spoil anything, but the movie has certain landmarks towards the third act, that it has several epiphanies, but I think the biggest message here that I wholeheartedly embrace is not taking life too seriously, because in the grand scheme of things, life is absurd. And yes, you might have heard it so many times, but this movie will remind you why. Because we have so many what ifs and anxieties in our life that we tend to daydream or think of what could have been our lives be if we did one decision over another, and this movie will make you feel good about yourself. So I highly recommend this movie. And the editing, apparently they did this on Adobe Premiere Pro, which is huge task because there are a lot of splice clips here. And wow, the technical display here, the direction, I love that there's some humor in it, but when it needed to be serious, it's able to transition smoothly. So this movie has a lot of ideas. It can easily fall into the weight of its ambition, but because the directors here have mapped it so beautifully, and even if the stories could be too comical or sometimes too violent, it all works in this very beautiful visual canvas that they've made. So I'm gonna give this one a perfect score, a 5 out of 5. I can't wait to watch this movie again. It's just filled with sincerity and most of all originality, especially on a time where Hollywood is just doing a lot of rehash and remakes. This one really stands out among the crowd. The next one is The Northman, directed by Robert Eggers. If you guys are looking for that Game of Thrones intrigue and that action from Vikings, so this is the one. Add that with that mysterious art house application by director Robert Eggers. This one is a different kind of a blockbuster experience, and I wish they make more movies like this. It's just a tale of a kid who grew up to be a Viking and vows revenge against the people who killed his father, who's the king. And it can play straightforward in the hands of a lesser filmmaker, but Eggers here, he does something to make the movie more theatrical and also filled with symbolisms, but it's not just pretentious, or it just not remains on an ambiguous level. Because I've seen this movie, The Lighthouse, and I know a lot of cinephiles are loving that film, but I'm really on the fence on that movie. But this one, I think this is the first Robert Eggers film that I truly love. I think the best word that describes this movie is it's so visceral. The grittiness of it, like showing the barbaric ways that these people behave. And it's not just purely on purpose of edginess. It's rooted on reality. It's just showing how these people are during that time, and that life is cheap and people kill that easily. I have to commend Jaren Blaché for the cinematography here, because there are a lot of long take shots here, and I know it took them a lot of time to perfect those shots, as well as the production design. Everyone in the cast is so amazing in this film, most especially the lead actor, of course, Alexander Skarsgård, putting on the physicality needed for this film. Anya Taylor-Joy is just a bright light whenever she pops into the screen, whatever role she plays. And yeah, even Nicole Kidman, Ethan Hawke, Willem Dafoe. This movie just put me into that time period, and it never let me go until the credits roll, and I was just wanting to watch it again. So this is another perfect movie for me. It's a masterpiece, so I'm gonna give another 5 for this. It's just filled with testosterone, and sometimes I'm just so pissed with life that I need a movie that's giving me a lot of hacking and yelling, and this is the movie that I needed. Now, the next film is an Indian film. It's called RRR, which stands for Rise, Roar, Revolt, directed by S.S. Rajamouli. This is another maximalist direction, and it really fits well because the scope of the story is just in epic proportion. It's the story of two legends, Bhim, who's a revolutionary fighter, and then there's Raju, who is part of the police force, who also seeks to overthrow colonialization. This movie has a lot of things going on. It has a musical, a very accelerating musical, and the action sequences, which are just insane bonkers. It defies the laws of physics, but this is one of those movies that you have to just turn off your brain at times and just enjoy it. Whatever spectacle they're showing, because it just entertains you from start to finish. This movie is a bit long with 3 hours of runtime, but this is one of those instances where the length is justified because of the epicness in the scale of the storytelling here. It's a historical drama, it's a rom-com, mostly on the bromance here of the two main characters, which really is entertaining. I love the way that they try to normalize this kinds of friendship, and it's just eliminating all shred of toxic masculinity. I love the friendship that is formed in this movie, and I was rooting for our characters here from start to finish. I have to say Ram Charan and N.T. Ramarao Jr. are in their element in this movie. They clearly put up the physical work needed to do a lot of superheroic things in this movie despite being humans. So I gotta admit, after watching this movie, I was a bit exhausted, but it was an exhaustion that is just brought by just like partying for 3 hours. Like, it's just a celebration of all this myth and the legend, and I can't wait to watch it again sometime. So I'm gonna give it a 4.5 out of 5. Movies like this reminds me of how wonderful it is to watch foreign films, mostly on the Asian films that are not really put to the gaze of the white audience. So this one really worked for me. Next film is from Amazon Prime Video. It's called Emergency. Now this one is a bit of a drama social satire film with a dash of a thriller here. We have 3 students here, 2 Black and 1 Latino, who find themselves burdened with this white girl who passed out in their dorm. Now they can't call the cops because with the current landscape of the justice system not really working in favor of the Black people, they need to be more conservative with their approach. So throughout the night, they are going to find a way to wake this girl and deliver her to a place without them having to report to the cops. Now, this one is a powerful movie, and even though it has sometimes a neon glowing light of when it comes to messaging, I think this one is something that can be an eye-opener. It's nice to see different perspectives here because there are 2 main Black characters here, and in a way these 2 characters represents the sentiments of the Black community. There's a side here who genuinely wants to help regardless if they're risking their life. Then there's also a side here that, you know, they know better than to meddle with these things. So they try to be more conservative and basically just try to continue with their lives without making any fuss. I think the writers have done a great way of finding the dark humor in the gravest of the situations here, but there's sometimes at the film that I'm struggling to find the proper tone for this movie, because I thought going in this is going to be more of a comedy thriller approach, but the way they shot it cinematography wise, I felt like it feels like more suited for a horror film. So it feels uneven at times, but this one is still worthy checking because the actors here, I'm not familiar with the young actors here. I think everyone did a great job, especially the lead character here. So I'm gonna give this one a 4 because I think this is such an important film and I was able to put myself on the shoes of our main character here. So I think I really appreciate this movie. Now moving forward, we have Top Gun Maverick. Now this one I got to see last week and this one really delivers as a sequel. It's a technical masterpiece. The aerial shots are so immaculate, and Tom Cruise, the way he smiles, the way he carries himself and executes the action scenes, this guy is just in a whole god tier level. But when you got to watch his interviews, he's very personable. So his quality, his star power quality translates throughout the screen and he really brings this movie together. In addition, we have a bunch of young guns here for the Top Gun and each and every one of them are amazing. Admittedly, this is not a movie that you will watch for the script. This is something that you will watch for the action sequences, and they're really going for the realist way here because if you're looking for the behind the scenes, they really shot this on the cockpit while moving inside the firefighter jet. No green screen here, and that is just the best way to deliver this sequel, to maximize the tension, to really feel that you are inside the cockpit with them. And the third act is just one of the best third acts that I've seen so far in this year and probably for the last decade. So I wish there are some subtitles here because there are some technical jargons here that kind of went over my head, but needless to say, I'm gonna watch this movie again because it just took my breath away. I was just in awe by the way they execute things. It managed to bring back that old school action vibe that I'm getting from the 90s flicks and to make it relevant and something that will still work in the 21st century. It's just something that's really amazing. So I'm gonna give this a 4.5 out of 5. It's one of the best legacy sequels that we get today. So yeah, that's it for my capsule reviews of all the films that I've seen for the month of May. Let me know guys if you've also seen this movie. How would you rank them? Hit them on the comment sections down below. Also guys, thank you so much for still subscribing and watching to this channel. I know I'm not really consistent when it comes to uploading just like in the past month, but I will try my best to upload new content every now and then. So I really appreciate you guys. So hit that like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and see you guys on the next one.